Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video edition of Mobility Outlook. We are at Mahindra & Mahindra's corporate office here at Worli, Mumbai. With me today is Mr. Ramesh Iyer, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Mahindra Financial Services. He's going to talk to us on a whole lot of issues, right from the road ahead for the economy, the challenges of digitalization, the transformation that's happening underway in the organization. Morning, Ramesh. Good to see you as always. And
thank you.
So how have you been? How is business? So what do you really have to say about the state of the economy and Mahindra Finance?
So I think if you recall our discussions sometimes in the past, not necessarily one has to refer to, but then the COVID wave 2 was the worst for rural. All of us know. And we had a share of the problem. Our performance was the worst then. And we were on records to say that it's nothing to do with the business fundamentals, nothing to do with the business model. It is just that the segment of customer that we were working with were going through very difficult times. And we believed their ability to bounce back as things to normalize. As we speak then and now, if you look at our March 23 closing, we had our historic best in terms of growth, in terms of profitability, in terms of asset quality improvement and all of that. And we continue to see trends going the same way where the consumers are pretty happy. I think their cash flows are doing well. And simply put, rural has 3-4 cash flows that they look for. Farm cash flow, infra cash flow, people movement, tourism. All of these are doing well, and therefore I think things are looking very bright for us, and so is for the rural market, and so is for Mahindra Finance.
Right. This other something that intrigues me, and I've asked you this in the past. The truth is, even when you look at data, especially on automotive data and the segment of two-wheelers and the cars, which are still languishing in rural, does that tell a story? Because at one point you do say that rural has enormous potential, and at the other end is a reality of a certain sluggishness that rural hasn't got out when it comes to buying this category of vehicles. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the way I've looked at rural, there is very clearly two aspects. One, aspirational purchase, another is a need-based purchase. I think if you put two-wheeler, etc. in a category of aspiration, because they already have a two-wheeler, they were exchanging it much faster cycle. They are saying, is there a hurry to do that? But on the other side, you look at the need-based product, whether it's a tractor, whether it's a pickup vehicle, whether it's an LCV, right? Whether it's a vehicle used for people carrying. I think they are all doing pretty well. The footfall at the dealership is high. In fact, some of the vehicles availability is a challenge. Pre-owned vehicles are doing pretty well. I think you're right that there are two types of sentiments.
Right.
And therefore, the one which is asking a question on, is there a hurry to buy this aspirational product? The other saying, let me buy it fast and not miss on the emerging opportunity. And that's what is driving the market there.
So what does it indicate? You mean there's this changing preference in rural that's also happening, you're saying, where people are going up the gradient and steering clear of basic offerings? Is that what you're suggesting?
So I think 2-3 things. Yeah. One is clearly people are prioritizing. Okay. They are saying, is everything normal or should I hold back some money for future? So that's one clearly seen, and therefore some of those products which don't fit into an absolute need base probably is getting a little questioned. On the other side, yes, the people are graduating to higher vehicles. The roads are good, travel has become more comfortable, and you're able to really put it to a proper use for tourism, carrying people to destination, etc., etc. That graduation is very clearly seen. The third is the commercial segment of it, which is you see infrastructure doing well. So you see the pickup type of vehicle, tractor with trailers attached is doing well. And the small pickup vehicles are doing well because of the small goods movement which is happening. E-commerce is driving many of this as well. So I think clearly these three categories are seen, of which the category one where people are saying, I am not in a hurry to acquire asset, I can wait, is the one which is doing the waiting.
Well, again, by sticking on the subject of rural, the one thing that, is this a pan-India optimistic outlook that you have, or you think there are certain parts of India which are truly firing on all cylinders? from Mahindra Finance's
I
point of
think,
view?
undoubtedly some states are bigger than other states. So therefore, volumes in certain states will always be high.
Right.
But, the way we measure the sentiments in rural is not just when we lend, but we also measure it by are we recovering well on time. And now when I look at it, across the country, our collection efficiencies are doing very well. Across the country, the asset quality has improved. Across the country, there's no need to repossess vehicle for settlement of dues. People are willing to come and make settlements. So if this is what is seen, I have every reason to believe that the sentiments are positive across the country. But the size definitely is different for different states, therefore the volumes could be different.
This is an amazing fact. The fact is levels of recoveries, because when you look at it, the worst years of COVID, 2021, when people talked about rural India being completely ravaged, the bouncing back has been phenomenal, hasn't it?
Yeah, in fact, even we thought initially, is it a pent-up demand?
Yeah.
We didn't think that fundamentals have changing for good always. But as we saw month after month, we've seen every month is doing the same thing. So now we have every reason to believe that things on the ground have really changed for good. The very important data that I may want to share with you, normally after a very good March,
Right.
April, May is not a great month from a collection perspective for 2-3 reasons. One, extreme climates. So the activity levels come down. Second is people go on leave, even our own people go on leave. So not too many people out there, right? And the customers would have already, maybe some of them would have even borrowed to repay in March. Therefore, they are not in a priority to repay. And therefore, in April and May, our collection efficiencies in the normal past, if you look at it, falls.
Correct.
It goes to 75-80% kind of an efficiency. Like last year, even this year, we saw April, May, efficiencies were upward of 95 and things like that. Which means that there is a continuing cash flow which is happening to these consumers. And that's for us is a great news.
Which is in sync with exactly your own bullish attitude on rural
Absolutely.
India. Your Vision 2025 plan, for all you know, could even be advanced by a year, going by the momentum in rural.
So if you look at the way our growth rates are, I think we are faster than we thought. And therefore we said by 2025 over a base of 22, we'll double our balance sheet to 125,000 or whatever. We're already at about 85, 86,000, right? And we have 2 years in hand.
Wow.
So I think we're doing pretty well.
So are you going to go back to the drawing board and say Vision 2025 could now be Vision 2024 and it's time to redraw Vision 2030?
I think that's not the way we operate our
I'm
business.
just-
The way we operate our business is we take a view
Right.
and we make sure that we resource the view well, we structure it extremely well, and we remain focused around it. I mean, by doing this, if you are able to advance something, it's great. Even when we put out a 25 vision, we had said that this is a number that we are driving for. But if it is 10% less, are we going to be overly disturbed and are we going to change our plans of resourcing? The answer was no.
Right.
And same is true that if we were to advance this growth and we were to get it a little earlier, I think definitely the celebration should be faster.
Yes.
But we will remain focused.
Right. So what does this indicate to Mahindra Finance? I mean, obviously there's greater buoyancy in the system, there's greater energy levels, and so give me an idea of what you plan to do now, because you bet big on rural and semi-urban India. So give me an indication of what perhaps lies ahead.
So I think if you look at our 25 vision, we had said few things. One, we said about 15-20% of our business will come from non-vehicle segment.
Yes.
So clearly focusing on SME, loan against property, right? These are going to be our priorities. I have a very, very strong conviction that leasing will do extremely well going forward. So we have set up a leasing vertical and we are focusing well on that. I was very, very happy to see the team has actually underwritten some 250 corporate accounts.
Wow.
And we never believed that Mahindra Finance was ready to be a very urban player yet. But through the leasing program, we have actually made a dent in the urban market by going to 250 corporates and doing their CTC cars.
Wow.
We are now focusing on how do we really launch the leasing retail program. So I think that's going to do pretty well in my opinion. If you recall in our earlier statements, we had said that we are setting up a vertical for digital lending for small ticket loans. That's shaping up pretty well. So all small ticket loans, personal loans, consumer durable loans, etc. would be done through a digital approach and will be end-to-end digital approach. And therefore that will be one vertical to look at. On the core, we were never a financier of affluent segment of the consumers, because the affluent segment always went to the bank and probably asked for a better rate and all that. We said with a large volume already that we are participating there, is there a possibility for us to play in the affluent segment called the prime segment and maybe give up something on margin but you get better quality, low cost of operation, and you still make the same ROA. So therefore, about 10% of our business will still come from the Primex. So if you look at our overall story of how we want to shape up our doubling the balance sheet growth, it's going to be the core maintaining and growing the market share, getting into prime as a segment and get some volumes out of that, getting into SME as a segment with including LAP as a possibility, which will contribute to about 15-20% of the growing balance sheet. And then of course leasing, get ready to future, and the digital lending to start kicking in that vertical.
Amazing. Would I also be accurate in assuming that when you say the renewed urban focus, and I'm speaking with leasing as a start, would electric again be a part of that?
Oh yes. I think again our bet is electric vehicle are definitely the vehicle for future. Right? We are already seeing in the three-wheeler side a lot of traction on the electric vehicle, both on the passenger front and on the cargo front. People are now understanding and really accepting the fact that while you're investing a little more to buy a vehicle, but the cost of operations are so low that you get your payback much faster. So therefore, we see a lot of traction out there. We are already significantly a large player in the three-wheeler financing with Mahindra's three-wheeler doing so well out in the market. We have a very clear focus on that. We do believe that through leasing, electric vehicle will take in big traction. So electric vehicle will be a focus for us. If need be, we'll create a vertical which will focus on this product, because one has to understand it better, because it has to be with a lot of, I would say, close coordination with the OEMs, because it will take time for us to understand and establish the resale price, etc., etc. So it will be a very close coordinated approach, and therefore there could be a separate vertical looking at it, but with full focus.
Amazing. So that would even look beyond electric three-wheelers alone. You'd look at two-wheeler.
Absolutely. Two-wheeler may not be in our horizon because we are not doing normal two-wheeler as well.
Right.
But we will start looking at it. Maybe we will look at it in our small ticket loan segment. Right. Does two-wheeler fit in there? Because two-wheeler, one shouldn't look at it as an asset-based funding. While there is an underlying asset, but it's more in the nature of a personal loan to someone. So therefore, it will fit into the small ticket loan approach.
Okay. Now, I assume with the Zomatos and the Swiggis and the kind of mass buying that's happening in the electric two-wheeler space, you'll be tempted to...
Oh yeah, B2B will definitely be of interest.
Right.
Whereas B2C for two-wheeler will take a little time differently.
Wow, so that's interesting. Electric vertical would mean that you're truly upbeat about that space. You do believe that change is really going to happen. And what does all this mean in talent? Because, everywhere I see around now, even an area like finance, for instance, digitalization is coming in, hiring is coming in, the whole aspect of what I call the cerebral quotient is changing rapidly. So what's your take on that?
So, we have an internal tagline which says that all of our employees have to be always employable.
That's nice.
Which means that management has to put disproportionate investment and time to make sure all your employees are relevant at all points of time. Right? You may hire them at a point with their certain skill sets for a particular purpose. And the purpose would, keep changing as per the market evolvement, how the market evolves. And therefore, you have to keep, enhancing the capability of your people. So we have a separate L&D vertical, learning and development vertical, which focuses on different levels of people and forecast on what are the skills that they would be required even going into future. So one is, how do you sharpen them for what they are? Two is, you have a 3-year strategy horizon clearly drawn up. What would that need? And then what is the market telling you is the need of the future? Clearly what we see in that front is many of our people have to go through training on the digital use, data understanding, technology use better, right? So this is something where we are definitely investing sufficient money and making sure that the people become very relevant for tomorrow. So it's a question of transformation within, and it will be an ongoing process.
That must be a humongous challenge, because you're talking about a massive change actually happening in terms of age demographics, even retaining people, because most organizations find that the biggest challenge. So,
fortunately, Mahindra Finance has recruited people from the local market, and they look at this as a big brand. But they will look at it as a big brand only if it meets their aspiration as well, right? And therefore, if we are able to really train them and skill them with new requirements, then I think they would respect us for us. At least the past few surveys that we have done, whether through Great Place to Work or our internal surveys of employee engagement, etc., tells us that our employees are very engaged with us. But we can't take that for granted. We need to have this continuous dialogue with them. There has to be a set of team which will continuously hear them out on what are their challenges and are we addressing them. And if we are willing to do that and we are able to do it skillfully, correctly, I think we should be able to reach it.
Right. And again, while on the subject of technology, you often hear this enormous thing about artificial intelligence, disruption of what you call human capital. And what is your own take in a business like Mahindra Finance, for instance? What does all this mean? Do you think at one level you hear tech being the great enabler and yet the disruptor? And from your point of view, what do you think really ought to be the best way going forward?
I think you can't ignore the coming in of such technology, coming in of the digital use,
Right.
coming in of the data use. So just apply what I said for the employee, also apply it to the business model, right? You have to be relevant. You just can't say for 30 years we've done a business one particular way, that's the only way we'll continue to do it.
Right.
You have to got to become relevant. We have huge data of our customers and we have to use it very sensibly, meaningfully. Connected to what I said, that the employee should be able to read and use the data well. My belief is data alone will tell you one story, knowledge alone will tell you one story. Maybe for 30 years we have run a business through knowledge and that's told us one story.
Right.
You can't just imagine that I'll run the next 10 years only with data. I think you'll have to find a way to use knowledge and data extremely well to bring that best outcome. Our own internal belief is digital is here to stay and we'll have to invest appropriately. But will the models all become only digital? I think that's not our belief. We think that there will be a phygital need. There will be branches, there will be people in the branches. At the same time, there will be a digital solutions that will be provided. So we are moving away from being a product provider to a solution provider. Right? So far we were product provider. We said, oh, you want to acquire a vehicle, we'll give you a loan. Tomorrow, somebody may say, oh, this is my total financial need. Some of that I may meet, some of that I may arrange for them. And when I have to arrange for something as a solution, then I have to be very, very technologically ready. I have to be digitally ready because that will be the ask of the other side as well, right? And therefore, you will see us, we've got an internal project called UDAN, which is transformation project, which is nothing but looking at purely this as to what is the experience that your customers are looking for and how do you give it? What is the experience your employees are looking for and how do you give it? And in order to do this, we are visiting all our processes today and we are seeing what of this can move on to a technology platform and what of this need to be continued to be done physically, right? And what's the new cost at which you will do this, right? And therefore, what's the end delivery to the consumer and how is it being delivered by the employee? I think that's the way we look at that.
That must be an overwhelming challenge, right? The transition, you're talking about acceptability within the organization, employees also in a way co-opting with this entire thing. What's it been like so far?
So it's been a great experience so far. People have participated extremely well in that because some things that we are doing is their ask. Something that we are doing is the consumers have asked our employees. And something that we are doing, maybe some of the competition is already doing. We are not first to do that. So therefore, this is a clear acceptance. But it is a change management program. It requires tremendous level of communication. It requires a continuous communication. And it also requires that agility, that if you go on a path, but if the market tells you something else, how flexible are you to be able to bring that change faster? So we've created a whole lot of team at the HO level with some people from the field, etc. And best of our people are put there. And I'm spearheading that so that, all of us are committed to bring this change because we're all together in this to create the next phase of MMFS.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been in this organization for over 3 decades right now, if I remember. You're all set to, retire next year. And when you really look back at your tenure, if you recall some memorable moments from your point of view, what would they be? Moments that gave you happiness, immense satisfaction.
I think 30 years every year has been different in its own way. I think when we started, I don't think we had the ability to imagine we would get this big. So if you ask me the happiness part of it, I would say from a very small, minuscule organization, we become a very large entity. That's really one. Two is, I think when I see happiness on the face of the employee, I believe we have done the right thing.
Yes.
Right? So we started with 2-3 people in the organization. Today we are close to 30,000 people. And when I meet them, when I travel and I interact with them, Most of them tell me we've been here for 15 years, 20 years, and whatever. That gives me happiness. Oh, they've found happiness for themselves in the organization. Right? That's the reason people continue with you for so long. But I think even bigger than that, if you ask me, is we set a business model where many of the borrowers were first-time borrowers or first-time people who are acquiring a vehicle. And when we meet customers of that type, we get this lot of happiness within us when we see that we've been able to provide them a livelihood. Because they tell us that through the earning through this vehicle, they have educated their children. They have actually done their house better. They got somebody married in the family. Some health issues have been handled because otherwise they would have struggled if this earning was not there. When I put this together, I don't think we can have a better joy, right? It was a business built with a purpose, and I think that purpose has been definitely met.
Amazing. Were there overwhelming challenges sometimes? I mean, there were up moments, of course, but were there difficult times also?
So, one of the de-risking we did was to be present across the country. But some states every year went through some difficulty. Sometimes the monsoon failed somewhere, maybe sometime lower economic activity somewhere. That state goes through a lot of pressure. But two events, national event, right, really put us back a little. Like first was when the demonetisation, because it's a very large cash-based model, right? And when the customers had pressure for a temporary period, we thought, oh, what next for us? But the bigger than that was the COVID impact.
Yes.
Right. When the COVID impact came in, we just didn't know how to handle. Our people were suffering, customers were suffering, everything was not working well for us. Suddenly NPA went to 15%. There was question around the business model. That was our real pressure moment. But once you believe in the model, believe in your people, believe in the process you put in place, and eventually the customers are genuine. So one thing that we have learned in 30 years in this business is to differentiate between circumstantial defaulter and intentional defaulter. And if your default is caused by circumstances, we have conviction that we'll come out of it. If it's caused by intention of a customer, don't waste time.
So wonderful talking to you, Ramesh.
Thank you.
Seriously, wonderful as always.
Thank you.
Best
Thank you. It was a
wishes
pleasure.
for your next big thing.
Thank
and
you.
do let us know when it happens.
Thank you. Surely. Thank you.
Thank you.